Imagine walking down the aisle believing you are about to marry the person you love, only to discover, in front of everyone you know, that the man waiting for you has chosen another woman. That was the beginning of Janika's pain. But sometimes the moment that breaks our hearts is not the end of our story. Sometimes it is the doorway to a life we never imagined. Janika's story is significant because it reminds us that rejection does not always mean we have been rejected by life itself. Daniel abandoned her when she was most vulnerable, making her feel worthless and unwanted. Yet, in the middle of that devastating moment, she met Ikena, a man everyone considered helpless, poor, and broken. She did not know he was a billionaire. She did not know he was powerful. She did not know that beneath the wheelchair was a man carrying years of betrayal, loneliness, and emotional wounds. And most importantly, she did not know that her greatest blessing would arrive disguised as the person society had taught her to pity. Their journey teaches us that true love should not be measured by wealth, beauty, status, physical ability, or social approval. It should be measured by loyalty, honesty, sacrifice, patience, and the willingness to remain when life becomes difficult. Janica eventually discovered that she did not need a billionaire to prove her worth. She needed someone who could see her worth when she could no longer see it herself. And Ikena discovered that the greatest fortune in his life was never Crestline Group. It was finding someone who loved the man before discovering the billionaire. Don't forget to subscribe, it means a lot to us. The church was filled with hundreds of guests when Janika Nwosu, 28, walked down the aisle in her white wedding gown. Her eyes were searching for only one person, Daniel, but the groom was nowhere near the altar. Instead, his phone lay abandoned on the front pew, still glowing with the message that would destroy Janika's heart. Jessica needs me. I can't leave her now. A murmur swept through the church. Janika stopped walking. Her father, Chinedu Nwosu, 58, slowly rose from his seat. Where is the groom? Someone whispered. Janika stared at the empty altar. Then the church doors opened. Daniel entered, but he wasn't alone. Jessica, 29, the woman Janika had always been told was merely Daniel's closest friend, walked beside him. Daniel didn't even look ashamed. He walked straight toward Janika and said quietly, "I'm sorry." Janika's lips trembled. "Sorry for what?" Daniel swallowed. "I can't marry you." The room went silent. Janika stared at him as though she had suddenly stopped understanding the language he was speaking. "You promised me. I know. You made me believe you loved me." Daniel looked toward Jessica. That single glance answered everything. Janika removed her engagement ring. It fell onto the marble floor with a tiny metallic sound that somehow seemed louder than the hundreds of whispers around her. Then she smiled, not because she was happy, because something inside her had broken so completely that there were no tears left. "Fine," she whispered. She turned around and walked back down the aisle alone. But outside the church, another stranger was waiting, a man sitting silently in a black wheelchair. His name was Ekena Okafor, 34. Janika had never met him before. He watched her walk past with swollen eyes and a wedding dress that had become a symbol of humiliation. Then he said something that stopped her. "Madam, if you're looking for a way to disappear from this day, I know one." Janika looked at him suspiciously. "What do you mean?" Ikena's expression remained calm. "Marry me." Janika almost laughed. A stranger, a wheelchair, a completely impossible proposition. But then she looked back at the church. Daniel was standing beside Jessica. And for the first time that morning, Janika realized something terrifying. She had nothing left to lose. Janika should have walked away. Every sensible part of her mind told her to go home, remove the wedding dress, cry herself to sleep, and never make another reckless decision. But humiliation had changed something inside her. She looked at Ikena. "You're serious?" "Yes. You don't know me. You don't know me either. Then why would you ask me to marry you?" Ikena lowered his eyes. Because sometimes two broken people need a place where nobody asks them to explain their scars. The words hit her harder than she expected. Janika climbed into his car. By evening, she had done something nobody could have predicted. She married Ekena Akafor. No grand celebration, no flowers, no expensive reception. Just two strangers standing before a registrar while Janika's hands trembled. When she signed the marriage certificate, she whispered, "I'm not doing this because I love you." Ekena nodded. "I know. I'm doing this because I need somewhere to begin again." Then begin. What Janika didn't know was that the man sitting beside her wasn't the helpless stranger everyone believed him to be. When Ekena took Janika to his family home, she immediately understood why people had pitied him. The house was large but strangely neglected. His older sister, Victoria Okafor, 42, looked Janika up and down. "You married him today?" "Yes," Victoria laughed coldly. "You don't even know what you've married." His cousin, Henry Okafor, 39, smirked. "Ekena has nothing." Janika glanced at her husband. Ekena remained silent. Victoria continued, "He owns no business. He has no stable income. His accident destroyed everything." Janika's heart sank. She had imagined starting a simple life. Now she realized she had married a man his own family considered worthless. That night, Victoria placed a stack of bills before Janika. "Since you're his wife now, you can help pay his debts." Janika stared at the documents. The amount was enormous. Then she noticed something strange. One of the documents carried a company name she recognized, Crestline Group, the same company where she had dreamed of applying for a designer position. She looked at Ekena. "Why is your name connected to Crestline?" His expression changed for half a second. Then he answered, "It isn't." Janika didn't believe him. That night, Janika cried quietly beside the bedroom window. Ekena heard her. "You regret marrying me." Janika wiped her face. "I regret trusting people." He said nothing. She continued. "Daniel didn't leave because he suddenly stopped loving me. He left because he decided someone else was more valuable." Ekena looked at her. "You're afraid you'll make the same mistake again." Janika nodded. "I don't know how to trust anybody anymore." For the first time, Ekena moved closer. "You don't have to trust me today. Then what do you want? Tomorrow." She looked at him. "And the day after that." His voice softened. "Let me earn it." Janika didn't realize it then, but those words would eventually become the foundation of their entire marriage. The following morning, Janika received an email. "Congratulations. You have been selected for an interview at Crestline Group." She stared at the screen. Crestline was one of the most powerful companies in Nigeria. She immediately accepted. When she arrived at the company's headquarters, the receptionist greeted her respectfully. "Mrs. Okafor?" Janika froze. "How do you know my name?" The receptionist smiled. "Your interview was personally approved." "By whom?" The receptionist hesitated. "The chairman." Janika's heart began pounding. "What chairman?" Before the receptionist could answer, a senior executive rushed through the lobby. "Mr. Okafor is arriving." Janika turned toward the entrance. A convoy of black vehicles stopped outside, but Ekena wasn't inside. Instead, a sharply dressed man entered carrying a tablet. Janika looked at him. "Who is Mr. Okafor?" The executive answered, "Ekena Okafor." Janika's blood ran cold. She returned home that evening and confronted Ekena. "You lied to me." Ekena looked at her. "About what?" "Crestline." Silence. "Are you connected to that company?" He didn't answer. Janika's anger rose. "Everyone told me you were broke. I never told you that. You let me believe it," Ekena finally said. "Because I wanted to know who would stay when there was nothing to gain." Janika stepped back. "So this entire marriage was a test?" "No." "Then what was it?" Ekena stared at her. "An opportunity." "For what?" "To find someone who could love me without knowing what I own." Before Janika could respond, her phone rang. It was Daniel. His voice sounded desperate. "Janika, we need to talk." She hung up. Seconds later, another message arrived. "You married the wrong man. You have no idea who Ekena really is." Janika stared at the screen. For the first time, she wondered whether Daniel knew something even Ikena hadn't told her. That night, Janika entered Ikena's study. She found a locked drawer. Inside was a photograph. Ikena stood beside a towering glass building. Behind him was the unmistakable Crestline Group logo. Under the photograph was a newspaper headline: Ikena Okafor, Africa's youngsters Felfan Mad Billionaire. Janika's hands began shaking. She turned around. Ikena was standing at the doorway. "You found it." Her voice cracked. "Who are you?" Ikena answered quietly. "The man you married." "You're a billionaire?" "Yes." "Why did you hide it?" "Because money has never told me who actually loves me." Janika stared at him through tears. "You should have trusted me." Ikena lowered his head. "You're right." For the first time since their marriage, he didn't defend himself. He simply admitted, "I was afraid too." Janika didn't leave, not that night. Instead, she sat beside Ikena and told him everything Daniel had done. Ikena listened without interrupting. Then he reached for her hand. "You lost a husband at an altar today," he said. Janika smiled sadly. "And gained a stranger." Ikena smiled. "Then perhaps we should start by becoming friends." Janika looked at him. For the first time since Daniel abandoned her, she felt something other than humiliation. She felt safe. But the next morning, when Janika arrived at Crestline for her first day as a designer, she discovered that Vanessa, 31, and Sandra, 30, had already begun plotting against her. And neither woman knew that the new designer they intended to destroy was married to the secret billionaire who owned the company. The sharper question was no longer whether Janika would survive her failed wedding. It was whether her new marriage could survive the people determined to uncover, exploit, and destroy Ikena's hidden empire. By 9 a.m. on Janika's first day at Crestline Group, her computer screen suddenly went black. She pressed the power button again. Nothing. Then her phone vibrated. A message appeared from an unknown number. "Leave Crestline before you discover what happened to Ikena." Janika's heartbeat quickened. Before she could reply, Vanessa appeared beside her desk. First day and already having problems. Janika looked up. Vanessa smiled. "Welcome to Crestline." Behind her stood Sandra, watching silently. Neither woman looked friendly. Janika didn't know it yet, but someone had already decided she would not survive her first week, and the reason had nothing to do with her design skills. Janika had worked hard to become a designer. She refused to let her failed wedding define her. So when the head of the design department, Mr. Chukuma Ize, 51, assigned her to a major luxury development project, she saw it as her chance to rebuild her life. "You're talented," he told her, "but this project is important. One mistake and you're finished." Janika nodded. "I won't disappoint you." Across the room, Vanessa overheard. She leaned towards Sandra. "She thinks she's special." Sandra whispered, "She's married to that crippled man." Vanessa's smile disappeared. "Exactly." Janika soon discovered that someone had deliberately altered her project files. Her original designs were gone. A completely different design had replaced them, one that violated Crestline's specifications. Mr. Chukuma summoned her. "Explain this." Janika stared at the drawings. "I didn't create these. Your name is on the file." "I know, sir, but someone changed it." Vanessa folded her arms. Maybe she's trying to blame someone because she knows she made a mistake. Janika looked at her. "I didn't." Mr. Chukuma gave her 24 hours to prove it. Janika returned home exhausted. Ikena immediately noticed. "What happened?" "Someone is trying to get me fired." His expression hardened. "Who?" "I don't know." He reached for his phone. "I can handle it." Janika stopped him. "No." "Why?" "Because I need to know I can stand on my own." Ikena looked at her proudly. "Then stand." The following morning, Janika found the original design file on a backup server. Someone had accessed it from Vanessa's workstation. She reported it. Security investigated. Vanessa was questioned. But before the investigation concluded, something worse happened. A financial audit revealed that Janika had supposedly received a 48 million payment from a Crestline contractor. Her bank account was listed as the destination. Janika stared at the report in disbelief. "I've never seen this money." Mr. Chukuma looked furious. "Then explain how it entered your account." She couldn't. Someone had fabricated evidence against her, and this time losing her job could be the least of her problems. That evening, Janika sat alone in the bedroom. She had already lost one man because another woman seemed more important. Now her new life was collapsing around her. "I can't do this again," she whispered. Ekena wheeled into the room. "You don't have to do it alone." She looked at him. "Everyone thinks I'm with you because of money." He was silent. "They think I married a helpless man because I wanted something." Ikena's voice softened. "Do you believe that?" "No." "Then let them talk." Janika's eyes filled with tears. "I just want one person to believe me." Ikena reached for her hand. "I do." Those three words broke the wall she had built around herself. She leaned against him and cried. Ikena held her quietly. But while they were together, neither noticed the security camera outside their house. Someone was watching them. The next morning, Ikena received a confidential report. The investigation into Janika's supposed 48 million payment had revealed something unexpected. The transaction originated from an internal Crestline account, and the authorization code belonged to someone very close to Ikena, Victoria Okafor. Ikena stared at the report. His sister had spent years claiming she wanted to protect him. Now the evidence suggested she was deliberately framing his wife. He immediately summoned Victoria. "Did you authorize this transfer?" Victoria looked offended. "How dare you accuse me?" "Answer the question." "I didn't." Ikena placed the document on the table. "Then someone used your credentials." Victoria's face changed. For one brief second, fear appeared in her eyes. Then she smiled. "Maybe you should ask your wife why she needed 48 million. Ikena stared at her. Victoria leaned forward. "Don't forget, Ikena. Your wife is still a stranger." But Ikena had begun to realize something. The real danger wasn't outside his family. It was inside it. Janika was suspended pending investigation. Her colleagues whispered whenever she walked past. Some called her a fraud. Others called her a gold digger. Vanessa openly laughed. "You should have stayed at home with your wheelchair husband." Janika ignored her. But then Daniel appeared outside Crestline. "Janika." She froze. "What are you doing here?" "I came to help you." She laughed bitterly. "You abandoned me at our wedding." "I made a mistake." "You chose Jessica." Daniel lowered his voice. "Jessica isn't what you think." Janika stared at him. "I don't care anymore." Daniel stepped closer. "You should." Then he handed her an envelope. Inside was a photograph of Ikena. The photograph showed Ikena walking, not sitting in a wheelchair. Janika's face went pale. Daniel whispered, "Your husband has been lying to you from the beginning." Janika returned home furious. Ikena was waiting. She threw the photograph onto the table. "You can walk." Silence. "Answer me." Ikena closed his eyes. "Yes." Janika stepped backward. "Why?" "My legs were injured in the accident." "You told me nothing." "I didn't want you to marry me because you felt sorry for me." "So you pretended?" "I never pretended to be unable to walk." "But you allowed everyone to believe it." Ikena looked at her. "My family wanted me to remain weak in their eyes. It kept them comfortable." Janika's anger slowly turned into hurt. "You hid your wealth, you hid your pain, and now I discover you hid this too." Ikena whispered, "I was afraid that if you knew everything, you would leave." Janika's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't need your money, Ikena. I know. I needed the truth." He lowered his head. "You deserved it." Then Janika noticed something. The photograph Daniel had given her contained a date. It was taken 3 months after Ikena's accident, which meant Ikena had been walking long before he met her, and Daniel had somehow obtained the photograph. Janika didn't forgive Ikena immediately, but she didn't leave. Instead, she told him, "If we're going to remain married, there can be no more secrets." Ikana agreed. I promise. Meanwhile, Crestline's investigation cleared Janica of the 48 million fraud. The payment had been fabricated, but the evidence pointed directly toward someone within Ikana's family. Janica returned to work. Vanessa and Sandra were furious. Their first attempt had failed. And now Janica knew someone powerful was protecting her. But she still didn't know why Victoria wanted her gone. That evening, Ekena opened an old file. Inside was a photograph of his late father, Gabriel Okafor, standing beside a young Victoria. On the back of the photograph was a handwritten sentence: "Never let Victoria discover where the original Crestline documents are hidden." Ikena stared at the words. His father had died years ago. So why had he specifically warned him about Victoria? And what exactly were the original Crestline documents that Victoria was willing to destroy Janica to find? At exactly midnight, someone broke into Janica and Ikena's house. The intruder didn't steal their television. He didn't touch the jewelry. He ignored the money sitting openly on the table. Instead, he went straight to Ikena's study. And when Janica suddenly switched on the light, the stranger froze. "Who are you?" He looked at her. Then he pulled a knife. Janica screamed. Before he could reach her, Ikena appeared from the hallway. For the first time since Janica had known him, her husband stood up from his wheelchair. The stranger's face went pale. "You can walk." Ikena stepped forward. "You shouldn't have come here." The intruder ran, but before escaping, he dropped a small black envelope. Inside was one sentence: "Your father's killer is still alive." Police arrived within minutes. The intruder had disappeared. Ikena refused to explain the message. Janica wouldn't let it go. "Who killed your father?" Ikena stared at the envelope. "My father died in an accident." "Then why would someone say he was murdered?" "I don't know." Janica knew he was lying again, but this time something was different. Ikena looked genuinely afraid. The following morning, he secretly contacted his head of security, Obina Eze, 46. "Find the man who broke into my house." Obina nodded. "And find out who sent the envelope." Meanwhile, Janica returned to Crestline. She was determined to rebuild her reputation. But when she entered the design department, Vanessa blocked her path. "You're becoming a problem." Janica frowned. "What do you mean?" Vanessa whispered. "You should stop digging into things that don't concern you." Janica's eyes narrowed. "What things?" Vanessa smiled. "You'll find out." Janica's new project was the redesign of Crestline's flagship headquarters. It was supposed to be the biggest project of her career. But someone sabotaged her again. This time, the building's architectural plans disappeared. Without them, the entire project could collapse. Mr. Chukuma gave Janica one final warning. "One more incident and you're out." Janica refused to surrender. She searched through old company archives. That's when she discovered something strange. The original Crestline headquarters had been designed by a man named Gabriel Okafor, Ikena's father. But the archived company records claimed Gabriel had sold the company years before his death. Janica noticed something even stranger. The signature on the sale agreement didn't match Gabriel's known signature. Someone had forged it. She immediately called Ikena. "Your father never sold Crestline." There was silence. Then Ikena answered, "I know." Janica froze. "You knew?" "Yes." "Then why haven't you done anything?" Ikena's voice became cold. "Because I don't know who forged the documents." That evening, Janica confronted him. "You keep saying you don't know." "I don't. But you know enough to be afraid." Ikena looked away. Janica's voice softened. "You don't have to carry everything alone." He remained silent. Finally, he told her the truth about his childhood. His father had built Crestline from nothing. But after Gabriel's death, Ikena discovered that several family members were fighting over control of the company. Then came the accident. "I was driving home that night," Ikena said. "A truck crashed into my lane." Janica listened. "The driver disappeared." "And your family?" "They told everyone it was an accident," Janica whispered. "But you don't believe that." Ikena looked into her eyes. No. Janika reached for his hand. Then we'll find the truth. Ikena stared at her. You're willing to help me? I married you. She smiled faintly. Even if you're impossible. For the first time, Ikena laughed. Their relationship was changing. It was no longer a marriage created by desperation. It was becoming a partnership. Obina returned with disturbing news. The man who broke into their house had been identified. His name was Kelechi Namani, 41. But Kelechi wasn't a professional thief. He had once worked for Gabriel Okafor. More importantly, he had disappeared immediately after Gabriel's death. Ikena ordered Obina to find him. 2 days later, Kelechi was found hiding in an abandoned warehouse. Ikena confronted him. Who sent you? Kelechi trembled. I wasn't sent to hurt your wife. Then why were you in my house? To warn you. About what? Kelechi pulled out an old flash drive. Your father discovered someone was stealing money from Crestline. Ikena stared at him. Who? Kelechi shook his head. I never saw the person. Then what did my father discover? Kelechi looked toward Janika. He discovered that the person stealing from Crestline was someone he trusted completely. Then he said the name, Victoria. Janika couldn't believe it. Victoria was Ikena's sister, the woman who had constantly humiliated him. The woman who claimed she was protecting the family. Ikena confronted her. Did father discover you were stealing from Crestline? Victoria laughed. You're accusing your own sister? Answer me. She slapped the table. You've always been arrogant. Ikena remained calm. You've always wanted control. Victoria's expression hardened. You don't deserve Crestline. Janika stepped forward. Why? Victoria looked directly at her. Because people like you destroy families. Janika's face tightened. What did I do? You married Ikena. Victoria leaned closer. And now you think you're powerful. Ikena's eyes darkened. Leave my wife out of this. Victoria smiled. You don't understand, Ikena. Then she whispered. Your father didn't leave Crestline to you. Ikena froze. He left it to Janika. The room went completely silent. Janika stared at Victoria. What? Victoria laughed. You heard me. Ikena turned toward his sister. That's impossible. Is it? Victoria pulled out a document. Your father changed his will 3 weeks before his death. She placed it on the table. Everything was left to his future daughter-in-law. Janika's hands trembled. But I didn't know your father. Exactly, Victoria said, because he knew someone would eventually marry you. Ikena looked confused. Victoria smiled. He knew your character long before you met. Janika looked at Ikena. Why would your father leave everything to me? Ikena had no answer. Then Obina rushed into the room. Sir, everyone turned. We recovered the original will. Ikena opened it. His father's signature was genuine, and beneath it was a handwritten note. Ikena must never reveal the truth about his identity until he finds the woman who loves him without knowing his wealth. Janika's eyes filled with tears. She suddenly understood. Her marriage wasn't entirely accidental. Someone had been watching her long before the wedding. Ikena told Janika everything. His father had suspected that the family would destroy Crestline after his death. He believed Ikena needed someone outside the family, someone who couldn't be bought, someone who would love the man before discovering the billionaire. Janika wiped her tears. So your father chose me? No. Ikena shook his head. He couldn't have known you'd marry me. Then why me? Maybe because he believed the right person would eventually find me. Janika smiled through her tears. For the first time, their strange marriage felt less like an accident. But there was still one dangerous question. If Victoria had stolen money from Crestline, forged documents, and possibly helped conceal Gabriel's murder, how far would she go to make sure Janika never inherited what Gabriel left behind? And before Janika could find out, Vanessa received a phone call. A voice on the other end said, "It's time to destroy her career completely." Vanessa smiled. "I've been waiting." Visual opportunity. This structure would make a powerful cinematic image. Janik discovering the hidden will inside Ikena's study, while Ikena stands behind her, with Victoria watching from the doorway. I can create that 69 ultra-realistic Nollywood-style scene if you want to visualize this turning point. Janika arrived at Crestline on Monday morning expecting another difficult day. Instead, she found hundreds of employees gathered in the lobby. Everyone was staring at her. A huge screen displayed her photograph. Underneath it were the words, fraudster, gold digger, thief. Janika froze. Then Mr. Chukwama walked toward her with two security officers. Mrs. Okafor, you're coming with us. Her heart dropped. For what? You've been accused of stealing confidential Crestline documents. Janika shook her head. I didn't steal anything. Mr. Chukuma held up a folder. Your fingerprints were found inside the chairman's private archive. Janika stared at him. But I've never been inside there. Then Vanessa stepped forward. Maybe your husband gave you access. Janika looked around the room. Everyone was watching. And somewhere upstairs, Ikena was watching the entire scene on a security monitor. His face hardened. Someone had just declared war on his wife. Janika was taken to a private conference room. Security searched her handbag. They found a small flash drive. Janika stared at it in disbelief. That isn't mine. Mr. Chukuma plugged it into the computer. A series of confidential Crestline documents appeared. Among them was the original inheritance agreement belonging to Ikena. Janika's face went pale. Vanessa crossed her arms. She knew exactly what she was doing. Janika turned toward her. You planted this. Vanessa laughed. Why would I? Because you hate me. Disliking you isn't a crime. Sandra stood behind Vanessa, but her expression wasn't as confident. Janika noticed. Sandra looked nervous. That tiny reaction gave Janika hope. Someone had forced Sandra into this, and Janika intended to find out who. Ikena entered the room. Everyone became silent. He looked at Janika. Are you all right? She nodded. Then she whispered, They planted evidence. I know. Janika looked at him. You know? Ikena turned towards security. Release her. Mr. Chukuma hesitated. Sir, the evidence. I said release her. His tone was so authoritative that everyone obeyed. Janika stared at him. She had heard that voice before. It was not the voice of a helpless man. It was the voice of someone accustomed to giving orders. After everyone left, Janika confronted him. You're hiding something again. Ikena sighed. I own Crestline. She stared at him. I know. No. He looked into her eyes. You know I'm the chairman. Janika's heart stopped. The chairman? Yes. She suddenly understood why everyone treated him with such fear. The wheelchair had never been his source of power. His identity was. Janika sat across from him. So all this time, you've been watching me work here? Yes. You knew Vanessa was attacking me? I suspected, and you let me fight alone because you asked me to. Janika's anger softened. She remembered telling him she needed to prove herself. You remember that? I remember everything you tell me. Her eyes filled with tears. Why? Because you're my wife. Janika looked down. She realized something painful. Ikena had enormous wealth and power, yet he had never used it to control her. He had allowed her to build her own identity. I was abandoned by one man because he chose another woman, she whispered. I don't want to become dependent on another man just because he has power. Ikena nodded. Then don't. He reached for her hand. Stand beside me, never beneath me. Janika finally smiled, but their emotional moment was interrupted by a call. Obina had discovered something. The flash drive had been registered to Sandra. Sandra was brought into the chairman's office. She was terrified. Ikena placed the evidence on the table. You planted the flash drive. Sandra immediately began crying. I didn't want to. Who forced you? She hesitated. Victoria. Janika's stomach tightened. Sandra explained that Victoria had threatened to destroy her family's business unless she helped frame Janika. But Sandra revealed something even more shocking. Victoria wasn't walking alone. Ikena leaned forward. Who? Sandra looked at Janika. Daniel. Janika felt as if someone had punched her. Daniel? Sandra nodded. He has been meeting Victoria for months. Janika's eyes filled with tears. Daniel hadn't simply abandoned her. He had entered her new life deliberately. He had come back because he wanted something. But what? Sandra finally whispered. They are trying to take Crestline away from your husband. Ikenna immediately ordered a full investigation. But before the investigation could begin, Crestline's board received an emergency petition. The petition claimed Ikenna was mentally and physically incapable of running the company. The petition demanded that he step down. The document was signed by several senior shareholders. Victoria had prepared everything. Then Daniel appeared before the board. He presented himself as an experienced financial consultant. His proposal was simple: transfer temporary control of Crestline to an independent management committee. The committee would be led by Victoria. Janika understood immediately. They weren't trying to destroy Ikenna, they were trying to remove him legally, and they were using his disability as their weapon. That night, Janika confronted Ikenna. You can't let them take everything. He smiled faintly. They won't. You sound certain. I've been waiting for them to make this mistake. Janika frowned. What mistake? Ikenna opened a locked cabinet. Inside were dozens of sealed documents, letting me know exactly who they are. The emergency board meeting began the next morning. Victoria arrived confidently. Daniel sat beside her. She looked at Ikenna. You're not capable of leading Crestline anymore. Ikenna remained silent. One board member asked, Okafor, do you have anything to say? Ikenna looked toward Janika. She stood beside him. Then he slowly rose from his wheelchair. The room erupted in shock. Daniel's face turned white. Victoria couldn't speak. Ikenna took several steps forward. I've been able to walk for years. Silence. I chose the wheelchair because I needed to know who respected me without knowing my strength. Victoria stood abruptly. You deceived everyone. Ikenna looked at her. No. He pointed toward her. You deceived everyone. Then he ordered Obina to distribute the evidence. Bank transfers, forged contracts, illegal payments, secret meetings. Every piece connected Victoria and Daniel to the conspiracy. The board turned against them. Daniel tried to escape. Security stopped him. Victoria collapsed into her chair. But Ikenna wasn't finished. He turned toward Janika. And there is one final person who deserves to hear the truth. Daniel was brought before Janika. He looked ashamed. I was wrong. Janika stared at him without tears. Why did you leave me? Daniel lowered his head. Because I thought Jessica had something you didn't. What? Money, connections, power. Janika smiled sadly. And now? Daniel looked toward Ikenna. Now I know I was the fool. Janika shook her head. You didn't lose me because of Ikenna. Daniel looked at her. You lost me because you never understood my value. She walked away. For the first time, Janika felt completely free from Daniel. Ikenna later dismissed the board members who participated in the conspiracy and secured Crestline's control. Victoria and Daniel were handed over to the authorities to face the consequences of their actions. Janika's career was restored. But that night, she asked Ikenna something unexpected. Why did you really marry me? Ikenna smiled. I thought I was giving you a fresh start. He paused. But somewhere along the way, you became mine. Janika smiled. No. She held his hand. We became ours. Yet their victory was not complete. The investigation into Gabriel Okafor's death had uncovered one disturbing detail. Victoria had not ordered the accident. Someone else had. And the name hidden inside Gabriel's final financial records belonged to a person Janika had never suspected. The name written inside Gabriel Okafor's final financial record belonged to someone Janika knew. Someone who had smiled at her. Someone who had comforted her. Someone she had trusted. Mr. Chukwuma Eze. Janika stared at the document. No. Ikenna's face became expressionless. For years, Chukwuma had been one of the few people Ikenna believed his father trusted. But now, his name appeared beside a series of secret payments made shortly before Gabriel's death. Then Janika noticed something worse. The final payment had been made 2 days before the accident, and the recipient wasn't Chukuma. It was a company owned by Daniel's father. Janika immediately called Ikena. "We need to talk." "What happened?" "I found something." She showed him the records. Ikena studied them carefully. "Where did you get this?" "Your father's archive." He looked troubled. "My father never mentioned this." Janika pointed to the transactions. "Look at the dates." Ikena did. The payments occurred shortly before Gabriel's death. Then another document caught his attention. A contract between Crestline and a private investment company. The contract had been signed by Chukuma, but the company belonged to Daniel's father, Richard Nanamdi, 61. Ikena's expression hardened. "Daniel's family had business dealings with my father." Janika nodded. "And someone wanted those dealings hidden before they could investigate further." Chukuma entered the office. He saw the documents. His face changed. "You shouldn't have found those." Janika immediately understood. He knew exactly what they were. Ikena stood. "You've been lying to me," Chukuma sighed. "I didn't kill your father." Then explained the payments. "I was following instructions." "Whose?" Chukuma remained silent. Ikena moved closer. "Tell me," Chukuma finally whispered. "Your father discovered that Richard Nnamdi was secretly taking money from Crestline." Janika's eyes widened. "Daniel's father?" "Yes." "Why?" "He was using Crestline's contracts to build his own company." Ikena clenched his fist. "Did my father confront him?" "Yes." "And then?" Chukuma looked down. "Gabriel threatened to expose him." Janika's heart began racing. "What happened next?" Chukuma didn't answer. Ikena demanded, "Who ordered the accident?" Chukuma looked directly at him. "Richard." Silence filled the room. The man behind Daniel, the man whose son had abandoned Janika at the altar, had apparently been connected to Ikena's father's death. Janika struggled to process everything. Daniel had hurt her. Victoria had betrayed Ikena. But now Daniel's father appeared to be responsible for the tragedy that had shaped Ikena's entire life. She asked quietly, "Does Daniel know?" Ikena shook his head. "I don't know." "What if he does?" "I'll find out." Janika looked at him. "You don't have to become like them." Ikena stared at her. "What do you mean?" "You've spent years carrying anger." She touched his hand. "Don't let revenge become the thing that destroys you." Ikena looked away. "I lost my father. I know. I lost years of my life. I know." His voice broke, and everyone who knew the truth watched me suffer. Janika pulled him into an embrace. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore." Ikena held her tightly. For the first time, he allowed himself to cry. Daniel unexpectedly came to Janika's home. Ikena was away. Janika opened the door. "Why are you here?" Daniel looked frightened. "I need to tell you something. I don't want to hear it." "Please." Janika hesitated. Daniel entered. "I found out what my father did." Janika froze. "You knew?" "I only discovered it recently." "What did he do?" Daniel swallowed. "My father ordered someone to follow Ekena's father." Janika's heart pounded. "Why?" "He wanted the documents Gabriel had." "What documents?" Daniel shook his head. "I don't know." Then he revealed something unexpected. The accident wasn't supposed to kill Gabriel. Janika stared at him. "What?" "He only wanted to scare him. But Gabriel died." Daniel nodded. "Because someone changed the plan." Janika whispered, "Who?" Daniel looked terrified. "I don't know." Suddenly, the front door opened. Ikena returned. He saw Daniel standing inside. His expression changed instantly. "What is he doing here?" Daniel immediately stood. "I came to tell the truth." Ikena grabbed the documents from his hand. "You should have told me years ago." "I didn't know." "You knew enough." Daniel looked at Janika. "I was wrong about you." Ikena stepped toward him. "Get out." Daniel stopped. "Ikena, your father wasn't killed because of Crestline." Ikena froze. "What?" Daniel pulled out an old photograph. It showed Gabriel standing beside a young man. The man was not Richard. It was someone else. Daniel whispered, "Your father discovered a secret about this man." Ikena stared at the photograph. He recognized him immediately. Henry Okafor, his own cousin. Janika's heart sank. Henry had been present during every family dispute. He had always claimed he wanted peace. Now his face appeared beside Gabriel shortly before his death. Ikenna summoned Henry. Henry arrived angry. "You're accusing me now?" Ikenna placed the photograph on the table. "Explain this." Henry looked at it. His confidence disappeared. Janika watched carefully. Henry finally spoke. "Your father discovered what I had done. What did you do?" "I borrowed money from Crestline." "How much?" Henry looked away. "Enough to destroy me. You stole from my father. I intended to repay it, but he found out." "Yes." Ikenna's voice became cold. "Did you order the accident?" Henry shook his head. "No." "Then who?" Henry's eyes filled with fear. "I don't know his name." Ikenna slammed his hand against the table. "Tell me," Henry finally whispered. "Your father's driver." Silence. Janika stared at him. "The driver?" Henry nodded. "He was paid to cause the accident." Ikenna immediately remembered something. The driver had disappeared after the crash. Everyone had assumed he fled because he was guilty. But if someone else had paid him, he might still be alive. Then Henry revealed the final piece. He wasn't working for Richard. Who was he working for? Henry looked toward Ikenna. "Someone inside your father's company." The investigation expanded. Ikenna ordered Obina to locate the missing driver. Daniel agreed to cooperate against his father. Victoria's financial records were frozen. Henry was placed under investigation. For the first time, the conspiracy was beginning to unravel. But Ikenna realized something important. His father had spent his final days trying to protect Crestline from people he trusted. Now Ikenna understood why Gabriel had left the company under such unusual conditions. He hadn't simply been protecting the business. He had been protecting his son, and perhaps even the woman Ikenna would someday marry. That evening, Janika sat beside Ikenna. "Are you going to keep searching?" "Yes." "Until you find the truth?" "Yes." She smiled gently. "Then I'll stay beside you." Ikenna looked at her. "You don't have to." "I know." She held his hand. "That's why I'm choosing to." For the first time, Ikenna understood the difference between someone staying because they had nowhere else to go and someone staying because they genuinely wanted to. But before they could rest, Obina called. "We found the driver." Ikenna stood immediately. "Where?" Obina's answer sent a chill through the room. "He's been living under another name for years, and there's something else." "What?" "He says Gabriel Okafor wasn't the only person inside that car that night." Ikenna's face went pale. The missing driver was finally found. His name was Emeka Obi, 57. But when Ikenna saw him, he immediately noticed something strange. Emeka wasn't afraid of being arrested. He was afraid of seeing Ikenna. "You survived the accident," Ikenna said. Emeka lowered his head. "I survived. Then tell me what happened to my father." Emeka looked toward Janika. Then he whispered, "Your father didn't die alone." Janika's heart stopped. "Who else was in the car?" Emeka's eyes filled with tears. "Your mother." Ikenna froze. "My mother died years before that." Emeka shook his head. "No, Ikenna." He swallowed. "She survived the crash." Ikenna couldn't speak. His mother, Adaeze Okafor, had supposedly died several years before Gabriel's accident. Her funeral had been held. Her grave existed. The entire family had accepted her death, or so Ikenna thought. "You're lying," he said. Emeka shook his head. "I saw her after the crash." "Where?" "Someone took her away." "Who?" Emeka looked terrified. "I don't know." Ikenna demanded the truth. "You've had 20 years to tell me." "I was threatened." "By whom?" Emeka lowered his voice. "Your uncle." Ikenna's eyes widened. His late father's younger brother, Patrick Okafor, 63, had disappeared from the family years ago. Everyone believed he had moved abroad. But now another family secret was surfacing. Patrick may have been involved in Gabriel's death, and possibly Adaeze's disappearance. Emeka gave Ikenna an old photograph. It showed Adaeze standing beside Gabriel outside Crestline's first office. On the back was a date, 3 days before the accident. But the real shock was the handwriting underneath. "If anything happens to us, trust nobody in the family." Ikenna stared at it. His father and mother had apparently known they were in danger. Janika asked, "Why didn't they leave?" Emeka answered, "They tried. Then what happened? Your father refused to abandon Crestline." He paused. He believed the company contained evidence that could expose everyone. Ikena's jaw tightened. "What evidence?" Emeka shook his head. "I never saw it." Janika looked at Ikena. "Then we need to find it." But before they could continue, Emeka suddenly collapsed. He had been poisoned. Doctors rushed Emeka to the hospital. Janika stayed beside Ikena. He looked completely broken. "My mother could be alive." Janika held his hand. "You'll find her. What if she's suffering somewhere? Then we'll find her." Ikena looked at her. "Why do you keep saying we?" Janika smiled. "Because you're not alone anymore." He looked away as tears filled his eyes. Then he whispered, "I spent years believing everyone I loved was gone." Janika leaned closer. "You still have me." Ikena looked at her. "And I have you." Their marriage had begun with two wounded strangers. Now they were becoming each other's safest place. But their emotional moment was interrupted. The doctor approached. "Mr. Okafor," Ikena stood. "Your witness survived." Relief filled his face, but he is asking to speak only to you. Ikena entered the hospital room. Emeka's breathing was weak. "I remember now," he whispered. "What?" "Your mother." Ikena leaned closer. "She was alive after the crash." "Where did they take her?" "An old private clinic." "Which one?" Emeka struggled to remember. "St. Raphael's." Ikena's heart raced. "That clinic closed 20 years ago." "I know. Then what happened to her?" Emeka closed his eyes. "Someone paid the doctor to hide her identity." "Who?" Emeka opened his eyes. "Your father." Ikena froze. "My father?" "Yes." "Oh, why would he hide his own wife?" Emeka whispered. "Because she had lost her memory." Janika stood outside the room, listening. But she heard something else. Emeka continued. "Your mother didn't know who she was." Then he revealed the shocking reason. She had a daughter with her. Ikena's eyes widened. "A daughter?" Emeka nodded. "She was alive too." The revelation changed everything. Ikena's family had always believed he was Gabriel and Adae's only child. Now there was evidence that he had a sister. Ikena searched old records. Nothing. No birth certificate. No hospital record. No photograph. It was as if the girl had never existed. Janika discovered something hidden inside the original Crestline archives. A medical payment paid by Gabriel. The patient was listed under an unknown name, but the date matched the accident. The patient had been a woman, and beside her name was "female child, approximately 4 years old." Janika stared at the record. "Ikena," he looked at her, "your sister survived." But before they could investigate further, someone broke into the archive. The medical record disappeared. The security footage was erased. And the only person who had accessed the archive that night was someone with executive level clearance. Someone currently working at Crestline. Ikena gathered the senior executives. "Someone here has been helping conceal my family's history." Nobody spoke. He placed a copy of the remaining evidence on the table. Whoever destroyed the archive made one mistake. Everyone looked at him. They forgot the backup server. Obina activated the footage. A figure appeared on screen. The person entered the archive at 2:17 a.m. Janika recognized the face. Her heart sank. "Mr. Chukuma." Chukuma looked defeated. Ikena stared at him. "Why?" Chukuma began crying. "I was protecting your father." "From whom?" "Your mother." Ikena froze. "What?" Chukuma revealed the truth. Ades had discovered that someone was using Crestline to launder money. She wanted to expose them. Gabriel tried to protect her. The accident happened. But afterward, someone convinced Gabriel that Ades and their daughter were safer hidden. "Who?" Chukuma whispered. "Patrick, Ikena's uncle. He told your father he could protect them." Ikena realized the cruel truth. Patrick hadn't saved his family. He had separated them. Ikena immediately began searching for Patrick, but the trail led nowhere. Patrick had disappeared years ago. Then Janika found an old Crestline employee record. Patrick had made monthly payments to a private care facility. The payments had continued for 20 years. The facility was still operating, and the patient registered under the mysterious name was alive. Janika looked at Ekena. Your mother may still be there. Ekena's hands trembled. After all these years, yes. For the first time, hope replaced anger in his eyes. They traveled to the facility. The elderly nurse opened the door. Ekena showed her the photograph of Ades. The woman's face changed. You finally came. Ekena froze. You know my mother? The nurse nodded. She has been waiting for someone to remember her. Janika squeezed Ikena's hand, but then the nurse added, There is something you must know. Ikena stared at her. What? The nurse pointed toward a quiet room. Your mother isn't alone. Inside sat an elderly woman with a familiar face. She slowly looked up and whispered, Ikena? He stopped breathing. His mother had remembered him. But the next words she spoke changed everything. Your father wasn't AD by the people you think. Ikena stood frozen in the doorway. The woman sitting inside the quiet room was older, thinner, and frail. But there was no mistaking her eyes. Adese Okafor, his mother, the woman everyone had buried 20 years earlier. Ikena could barely speak. Mother? Adese looked at him. Her lips trembled. My son. Ikena rushed toward her and fell to his knees beside her chair. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. They simply held each other. Then Ikena asked the question that had haunted him for 20 years. Who killed my father? Adese's tears began falling. It wasn't Patrick. Ikena froze. It wasn't Richard. She shook her head. Your father died because he discovered the person closest to him had betrayed him. Janika stepped forward. Who? Adese looked directly at Ikena. Your father's best friend. Ikena couldn't understand. His father's best friend had been Samuel Nwafor, a respected businessman who had worked beside Gabriel since Crestline's earliest days. Samuel had attended Gabriel's funeral. He had comforted Ikena. He had even helped manage Crestline during Ikena's recovery. He's still alive? Ikena asked. Adese nodded. He is. Where is he? I don't know. Adese explained that Gabriel had discovered Samuel was secretly selling Crestline's confidential contracts to competitors. Gabriel confronted him. Samuel threatened him. Then the accident happened. But there was something else. Samuel had discovered that Gabriel planned to expose him, so he arranged for the crash. Patrick had been involved afterward, not as the mastermind, but because Samuel convinced him that hiding Adaise and her daughter would protect them. Patrick had taken Adaise to the private facility after the crash, but Samuel made sure nobody ever found them. Ikena's anger burned. All these years, Adaise touched his face. Your father wanted you protected. Ikena immediately ordered Obina to investigate Samuel. They discovered that Samuel had built an enormous private investment company after Gabriel's death. But there was something disturbing. A significant portion of his wealth came from Crestline assets. Samuel had secretly stolen millions. He had then used shell companies to hide the money. Janika looked at the records. He didn't just kill your father. He stole his legacy. Ikena nodded. And he almost destroyed Crestline. But another discovery made the situation even more dangerous. Samuel had recently begun purchasing Crestline shares. He was preparing to take control of the company. Janika stared at Ikena. He's coming back. Ikena's eyes hardened. He never left. That evening, Ikena sat beside his mother. Adies reached for his hand. I am sorry. For what? For allowing you to grow up believing I was dead. You didn't choose that. I wanted to come home. Ikena's eyes filled with tears. Why didn't you? I had lost my memory. She looked toward Janika. Then when I remembered, Patrick told me Samuel would kill you if I returned. Ikena looked at Janika. His entire childhood had been built on a lie designed to keep him alive. Janika sat beside him. You survived. He looked at her. So did you. She smiled. And now we are finding each other. Ikena kissed his mother's forehead. For the first time in 20 years, his family was beginning to heal. But then Ade suddenly remembered something. Ikena, Yes, your sister. Ikenna looked at her. What about her? A Daisy pointed toward an old photograph. She wasn't 4 years old when the accident happened. Ikenna frowned. What do you mean? She was 17. Ikenna stared at the photograph. A young woman stood beside Ades. Her face was unmistakably familiar. Janika gasped. She looks like you. Ades nodded. Her name is Kiamaka Okafor. Ikenna's heart raced. Where is she? Ades looked away. She was taken from the clinic. By whom? Samuel. Ikenna's face hardened. Why? Because she knew what happened. Kiamaka had witnessed Samuel arguing with Gabriel before the accident. She knew Samuel was responsible. Samuel took her away to ensure she couldn't testify. But Adeze revealed something even more shocking. Kiamaka had escaped. Years ago, she had been searching for Ikenna ever since. Janika immediately asked, where is she now? Adeze gave them an address. A small town several hours away. Ikenna left immediately. But when they arrived, the house was empty. Only a letter remained. It was addressed to Ikenna. Ikenna opened the letter. If you found mother, then Samuel knows you are close. His heart sank. The letter continued. Don't trust anyone who approaches you claiming to have information about our family. Janika looked around. Someone has been here. Then they heard a vehicle approaching. A black SUV stopped outside. Samuel stepped out. Ikenna's blood ran cold. After 20 years, the man who had destroyed his family was standing before him. Samuel smiled. Ikenna. Ikenna stepped forward. You killed my father. Samuel didn't deny it. Instead, he looked at Janika. So this is the woman. Janika frowned. What woman? The one your father chose. Ikenna froze. What are you talking about? Samuel laughed. Your father knew he was going to die. He pulled out an old document. He prepared everything before the accident. Janika stared at it. It was another copy of Gabriel's secret will. Samuel smiled. He left Crestline to your wife. Ikenna's expression changed. Samuel continued, and that is why everyone around you has been trying to control her. Ikenna confronted Samuel. You wanted Janika dead? Samuel shook his head. No, I wanted her frightened. Why? Because she unknowingly possesses something more valuable than Crestline. Janika stepped forward. What? Samuel pointed toward her wedding ring. Ikenna looked at it. Janika's ring. The simple ring he had given her on the day they married. Samuel smiled. Your father hid a final access key inside that ring. Janika's eyes widened. Ikenna immediately removed the ring. Inside the band was a tiny engraved symbol, a Crestline security mark. Samuel wanted it, but before he could move, Obina and the police surrounded him. Samuel had walked into a trap. Ikenna had secretly recorded their conversation. Samuel was arrested, but he laughed as the officers took him away. You think you've won? Ikenna stared at him. Samuel shouted, ask your wife what she was really given. The evidence against Samuel was overwhelming. His financial crimes, the conspiracy surrounding Gabriel's death, and his role in hiding Adeze and Kayamaka were exposed. Crestline's stolen assets began returning. Adeze was finally reunited with her son, but Kayamaka was still missing. Ikenna refused to stop searching. Janika stood beside him. You found your mother. Yes. You exposed the man who destroyed your family. Yes. Then we'll find your sister too. Ikenna smiled. You really mean that? Janika nodded. I married a stranger. She touched his hand, and somehow that stranger became my family. Ikenna pulled her into an embrace. For the first time, they both understood that their marriage had survived something much bigger than betrayal. But as they returned home, Janika noticed something inside her wedding ring. There was a tiny compartment she had never seen before. Inside was a folded piece of paper. She opened it. Only one sentence was written. If this ring reaches my son's wife, then I know she is the woman I was waiting for. It was signed by Gabriel. Janika looked at Ikenna in shock. His father hadn't simply left them an inheritance. He had left them a final test of love, and now they had one final mystery to solve. Janika stared at the tiny piece of paper hidden inside her wedding ring. Her hands trembled as she read Gabriel Okafor's final words. If you are reading this, then my son has finally found a woman who loves him for himself. She looked at Ikena. Your father knew about me? Ikena was equally stunned. I don't understand. Jenica continued reading. Ikana will eventually become one of the most powerful men in Africa, but power will destroy him if he cannot find someone who sees the wounded man beneath it. Ikena's eyes filled with tears. His father had known. He had known Ikena would hide his wealth. He had known the family would betray him. And somehow, he had believed that one day Ikena would meet the right woman. But there was one final line. Janika read it aloud. Do not let money become the reason you stay together. If love is real, give everything away. Ikena stared at her. His father's final test was about to change their lives. Gabriel's hidden inheritance contained something nobody expected. Not another company, not another fortune. A charitable foundation worth billions. Gabriel had established it secretly years before his death. The foundation was designed to help widows, abandoned women, disabled people, and struggling families across Africa. But the foundation could only be transferred to Ikena if Janika agreed to become its co-trustee. Ikena looked at her. You don't have to do this. Janika smiled. I know. You could walk away with nothing. I know. Then why stay? Janika looked at him. Because I didn't marry you for Crestline. She paused. I married you because I needed someone who understood what it meant to be broken. Ikena's eyes filled with tears. And you? I stayed because you made me feel safe. For the first time, neither of them was afraid of losing the other. But their happiness didn't last long. A legal notice arrived. Samuel's remaining associates were challenging Gabriel's inheritance. They claimed Janika had manipulated Ikena into signing over the family fortune. The case became national news. Headlines appeared everywhere. Mystery wife takes control of billionaire's empire. People called Janika a gold digger. Others claimed she had married Ikena deliberately because of his wealth. Even some Crestline employees began doubting her. Janika was devastated. I thought this was over. Ikena held her hand. It isn't. What if everyone believes them? Let them. He looked into her eyes. I know the truth. But the lawsuit had one dangerous weakness. If Janika and Ikena couldn't prove their marriage was genuine, the inheritance could be frozen. And Daniel unexpectedly returned. This time, he wasn't asking Janika to come back. He had brought evidence. Daniel entered the courtroom carrying an old video recording. It showed Janika crying after being abandoned at the altar. It showed her meeting Ikena that same day. Then it showed their wedding. Daniel looked at her. I know I hurt you. Janika said nothing. I cannot undo it. He handed the recording to her lawyer. But I can't tell the truth. The video proved Janika had married Ikena before she knew he was wealthy. The court accepted it as evidence. Daniel had finally done something selfless. Janika looked at him. Why help me? Daniel smiled sadly. Because I finally understand what I lost. Janika shook her head. You didn't lose me to Ikena. Daniel lowered his eyes. I lost you because I didn't value you. Janika walked away. She no longer needed his apology. She had already forgiven herself for ever loving him. The court ruled in Janika and Ikena's favor, but then the judge revealed something unexpected. Gabriel's foundation had another beneficiary, a woman named Kiamaka Okafor, Ikena's missing sister. Janika looked at Ikena. We have to find her. They followed the records to a small coastal community. There, they finally found Kiamaka. She was 37. She had spent years living under another name. When she saw Ikena, she froze. Ikena? He walked toward her. Kiamaka. They embraced. 20 years of separation collapsed into one heartbreaking moment. Kiamaka cried. I thought you were dead. So did I. They held each other. But Kiamaka had brought something with her, a final letter from Gabriel. She handed it to Ikena. Father left this with me. Ikena opened it. The letter revealed the truth. Gabriel had suspected Samuel long before the accident. But he also knew someone else had helped Samuel. Someone who had never been exposed. The final name shocked everyone. Richard Ninamdi, Daniel's father, he had financed Samuel's operation, but Richard had already fled the country. The authorities began searching for him. Daniel agreed to testify against his father. Meanwhile, Akena made a decision. He would not spend the rest of his life hunting everyone who had hurt him. He would rebuild. He announced publicly that he would dedicate a significant portion of his wealth to Gabriel's foundation. Janica stood beside him. Together, they opened the first rehabilitation center. It was named the Gabriel and Ades Okafor Foundation. At the opening ceremony, Ikena looked at Janica. "You remember the day we met?" She laughed. "You proposed to a complete stranger. You said yes." "I was heartbroken and I was terrified." Janica smiled. "Look at us now." Then Ikena made one final announcement. He handed Janica the legal documents transferring half of his personal fortune into the foundation. The crowd erupted. Janica stared at him. "You're giving away billions?" Ikena smiled. "My father taught me that wealth means nothing if it doesn't help someone." Janika's eyes filled with tears. Then Ikena turned toward her. "You once married me because you had nowhere else to go." He took her hand. "But today I'm asking you something different." He slowly lowered himself before her. Not because he needed the wheelchair, because he wanted to kneel. "Janika Nwasu, will you choose me again?" she cried. This time there was no church full of strangers. No abandoned altar, no humiliation. Only the man she had learned to love. "Yes." Ikena slipped a new ring onto her finger. "This time you know exactly who you're marrying." Janika laughed through her tears. "And I would still choose you." Months later, Janika became the creative director of Crestline Group. Vanessa and Sandra were dismissed after their roles in the sabotage were confirmed. Victoria and Henry faced the legal consequences of their crimes. Richard was eventually arrested abroad and brought back to face prosecution. Samuel received a lengthy prison sentence. Chukwuma cooperated with investigators and was granted leniency after revealing the full conspiracy. Adaeze moved into Ikena's home. Kiamaka became involved in the family foundation. And Janika, she never returned to the woman who had walked down that church aisle alone. She had become stronger, not because she married a billionaire, but because she learned that her worth existed before the billionaire ever appeared. One evening, Janika and Ikena stood together outside their foundation. She looked at him. "You know what is funny?" "What?" "If Daniel hadn't abandoned me," Ikena smiled, "I might never have met you." Janika shook her head. "No." She held his hand. "I would have met you eventually." "Why?" "Because sometimes life breaks one door so it can lead you through another." Ikena kissed her forehead. And Janika finally understood the greatest lesson of her journey. She had not been abandoned at the altar. She had been redirected toward a love that never asked her to prove her worth. Their marriage had begun as two wounded strangers seeking escape. It ended as two healed people choosing each other freely. Not because of money, not because of power, but because after everything they had survived, they still chose love. And this time, neither of them walked away.